Well, everybody, what's up? Not just, but I did get to go see Venom. Let there be carnage today. Sorry, I'm a Carnage fan. I like Venom. I like Carnage. So I like when they do that. Let there be carnage, or we are Venom. I like that stuff, but we are here because I'm doing a review, right? So, if you go into this movie expecting what you think the comic books depict of, how they portray Venom and how they not Venom, but how they portray Carnage, and somewhat how they portray Venom too. Then I'm here to tell you, this is the mindset that you need to go in when you see this movie. When you go see this movie, expect a buddy cop type of movie, a buddy cop type movie, also combined with a romantic comedy. So it's a buddy cop comedy combined with a romantic comedy as well. So that's what you need to go into, because if you go into with that mindset, then you will definitely enjoy the movie. But if you go into looking for the comic book gory killing Carnage, you're going to be disappointed, and you're not going to really enjoy the movie for what it is. But if you go in like how I say to go in, you will enjoy the movie, and that's why I could enjoy the movie. One of the things I want to point out is that I am a Spider-Man fan, so I like Spider-Man like most people. But other than Spider-Man, I like Venom, I like Carnage, I like Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Mary Jane, Electro, Mysterio, so on and so forth. So you get what I'm going with this. What I'm trying to basically say is that I usually go from 1 to 10 on my scores, but because this movie had Carnage as the villain of this movie, and rightfully so, because Cassidy is a villain in himself. He's the Carnage killer. He's a serial murderer, serial killer. So with all that being said, I already have to deduct 1 point to where this movie, the highest this movie could get is a 9. Because it can't get a perfect 10 because it's not rated R. That should have been rated R with the fact that Carnage is your main villain. With all that being said, let's get to the synopsis of what this particular Venom movie was about. It says, Eddie Brock is still struggling to coexist with the shape-shifting extraterrestrial Venom when deranged serial killer Cletus Cassidy also becomes a host to an alien symbiote. Brock and Venom must put aside their differences to stop his reign of terror. So, for the base of this movie, what it's trying to say is that this movie keeps somewhat of Cassidy's background intact. He was a mad serial killer that got called the Carnage Killer. Carnage is basically somewhat who he was in the comics when it comes to being with Cassidy, except what they changed is that Cassidy, it was kind of stupid to me that they try to say Cassidy and Carnage is not symbiote bonded like how me and you are, but in the comic books he was. In the comic books, both Carnage and Venom was both symbiote bonded with their hosts. But for some reason, in the movie, they chose not to have that for Carnage. But we start the movie in 1996 at the flashback to show us a background, a backstory, as you will, origin story, what led, or at least part of it, because then we get. The other part of it is told in the present day, but in this flashback we get part of Cassidy's backstory, and this pertains to his love for Frances, his accurate comic book girlfriend, who is also the mutant known as Shriek. I guess that's their way of introducing mutants, at least into They just well, it's weird. They introduced mutants into the Sony verse of Spider-Man movies because that's technically they didn't get like an explanation to what she was. So it's left to the audience to basically say she's a mutant because that's basically what we know her as. Shriek is the mutant X-Men like mutant character who is just how happens is will be really more of a Spider-Man villain than an X-Men villain, but she is an X-Men like character because she's a mutant. Who also gets his ability from Cloak, who has some ties to Cloak and Dagger. Basically, we get a backstory on them. We see that they was lovers, and how we learn in the other part of the exposition about their past, they've been in love with each other since kids, since they met each other at the orphanage because Cassidy was in the orphanage. He was getting beat on and picked on by the other kids until Frances used her ability to scare off the kids, and they became lovers. But yes, this it gives us that backstory. It shows us. It leads into how Frances herself, we see it in the trailers, at being locked up at Ravencroft. That beginning backstory leads into that. But then we shift to the present day. It's a non-spoiler, so didn't give you the full scope of that beginning part. But that I do spoil that much of it, that it was at the beginning or the start of the movie. That's how the movie starts out. So we then shift to the present day, and we get to see that the present day is like maybe a year, maybe a year and a half, maybe a year and a couple of months, or if not a year, at best, at the longest, this movie takes place a year and maybe a month or two later, or just a year later, or going back just to a couple of months later. So either way, it's not that long after that ending cliffhanger for Venom, because the only difference is that Cassidy got his hair cut in this movie from that one. So this got to be like I would say like a couple of months later, but it could be also a year later. Brock is called to interview by Detective Mulligan to interview Cassidy, because Cassidy will only tell people that he will only talk to Brock. For some reason, he wants to talk to Brock, and we found out that in the cliffhanger, Brock screwed it up. So it kind of put his career, even though I guess after the events of the first one, his career kind of got back on track, but then he screwed it up with Cassie, so it got back to where it was basically in the first film. But they quickly remedied that with this first interview with Cassie, and this leads to Brock thanks to Venom finding out some things that Cassie promised only if Brock did something first, and even though Brock did carry out what he wanted, what Cassie wanted him to do, but Brock just didn't have to come back for that second interview to find out what he was looking for, and that was the locations of the victims that Cassidy killed. You get that Brock uses that information thanks to Venom, and will put his career back on hold. Back on track. He's getting big checks. He can afford a better bike. Actually afford a good TV and pay his rent. He can afford all that type of stuff now because his career is back on track. But then you're starting to notice that Venom and Eddie are not really coexisting together very well. They're not getting along. They're actually kind of just bickering amongst each other. Venom wants to be let loose a little bit more to eat chocolate and bad guys, and but Brock wants to keep him inside and keep him hidden, right? I'm trying to see what else could I say without spoiling anything. You get to see basically Venom and Brock dealing with their everyday life situations. You get to see Annie, who basically invites Brock to dinner, but the Brock being invited to dinner is not what he thought it was going to be, and he has some unfortunate news for Brock that hurts both Brock and Venom, and that news is just basically wedding finger news, as in, you know, she's basically getting married to Dan, and that Dan didn't and Brock didn't really take that too well. This will further the split between Venom and Brock. So we get a second visit, which leads to the scene that we've seen in the trailers where Brock getting his hand bit, and that's because of a conversation he was having with Cassidy. Got a little bit too heated, which leads to Venom and Brock further split. Cassidy getting the death penalty thanks to Brock, revealing where the locations of the bodies were. This got the death penalty reinstated for one-time use only in California, just for Cassidy, and this will lead to the creation of Carnage. Carnage would go on a rampage and basically cause Carnage in the prison. This would get Detective Mulligan to look at Brock, because every time Brock, he tells Brock, like, every time something happens, you always at the epicenter of it, but you don't have no information to tell nobody. This would lead to like a series of events with breakouts, reuniting breakouts, and this is where basically the buddy cop / love comedy comes into play, because this is basically where the movie ramps up the comedy, and through and through it's a comedy, but the comedy really gets ramped up, like really comes apparent, and that's pretty much where you stick with throughout the whole movie, is this comedy and sometimes serious moments, but then you got comedy thanks to Venom. You have you get comedy icebreakers and within these serious moments. There's also a funny thing with Mrs. Chan. I think we do get Lady Venom again, and yeah, we get the epic climactic battle, and we got a post-credit scene. That post-credit scene is the only That's the only thing. You go see this in the movies, the only thing you're going to see is the post-credit scene. There's no scene in the end credits, just the post. The post-credit scene sets up. Well, you know what? The best way to explain this post-credit scene is this: something, 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 set up, something, 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 MCU, future, something, 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 December. If you don't know, you figure it out. I'll tell you this: the biggest clue is when I said December, because if you've been living on the rock, you know what's coming in December. Yeah. So basically, this movie, the things I had a problem with was that, like I said, for one, it wasn't rated R. The story, it felt just in points that it should have been more fleshed out. It felt rushed. The movie in itself didn't feel kind of rushed. I wish the movie was longer. I said that's a -2. Other than the movie not being rated R, -2 is that the movie should have been a little bit longer. And that leads into -3, which is the -3 is that because the movie wasn't long enough, we didn't get enough fleshing out of Cassidy and enough flesh out of Francis. Now, the thing is, the reason why I say that, because it's a moment in the movie where you see the good side of Francis. And it's weird because we never really saw a bad side to her. So it's like, wait a minute, what did she become evil for? And now that now you just gotta go back to being good for this one moment. What's going on here? So if I would have loved for them to flesh out Cassidy and Francis just a little bit more, but you couldn't really do it if you didn't have the movie R-rated, which leads back to my first negative, was the fact that it wasn't R-rated, and because of that, you couldn't really flesh out the characters more because the one of the things you need to do is show some gruesome carnage, as the name implies, carnage. Let there be carnage, right? But there wasn't really that's another thing too that ties in with the first one, is that the movie is called Venom. Let there be carnage, but you really didn't see a lot of carnage. You saw a lot of chaos, but you didn't see a lot of carnage. Besides seeing Carnage himself, you didn't really see a lot of carnage created by Carnage. I think that I think that was what the R-rated movie not being long enough, them not being fleshed out long enough. I'm trying to see. What was there another thing I did not like about this movie? I just did, I didn't like the fact that Venom. I think I would have liked the fact that Venom, they would have changed it. I gave him a pass with the first one, but I think I would have liked to see Venom be a little bit more Venom in the comics. But that's just a nitpick, but it was another negative. But the positive was that I enjoyed the visual because I went in. The real fourth negative was supposed to be the fact that it was a buddy. It wasn't ready. It wasn't a buddy. It was a buddy comedy / romantic comedy more so than what you needed to be. But because I knew that going into it, it didn't hurt my experience with the movie because I knew that going into it, so I actually enjoyed it. So that original fourth negative became a positive. So that's a positive that since I knew that it was going to be a romantic comedy as a buddy comedy, I enjoyed the movie. So that's a plus. The visuals, they did a little bit of a touch up on Venom. I love the visuals on Carnage and the potential he had. Oh. Now I remember was another negative was this is what the fourth negative is going to be. What I told you what the fourth negative was, forget that. This is the fourth negative, that they made a decision on the character, because this is a double-edged sword type thing. The post-credit scene makes the movie a lot better, but it also hurt the movie in the fact that when you see what they made a decision on this certain character, and this certain character won't be present no more in the future of the movies. It's like, but then you see the post credit scene, it was like, what? Nah, you could have had so much more if you didn't just do what you just did. But now because you did what you just did, you kind of messed everything up now. So they decision on a certain character for me especially because, like I said, I love Spider-Man characters. I gave you the list of Spider-Man characters. This what they did in this movie for a certain character made me it hurt me because there was so much potential for the future if they just would have did it the right way. But back to the positives. The positive was that I enjoyed the movie. It's a good. If you go into it knowing what it is, you'll enjoy it. The visuals, the plot was okay once you realize what it was, and for the most part, Cassidy was himself. But again, going back to the fleshing out the characters, I wish there was more, because Woody Harrelson could do a lot more as a villain. If you ever seen Natural Born Killers, because there's a line in this movie that made reference to Woody Harrelson's movie Natural Born Killers. That's one of his classic rare times where he plays villains, when he play like a villain or a killer or whatever you want to call it, bad guy, villain, whatever. That's a rare movie. If you haven't seen it, go look that movie up and go see type in Natural Born Killers with Woody Harrelson, and you will see why, if they would allow him to they would have made it rated R and allowed him to put just a fraction of that into this movie, he would have made a very good Cassidy. But yeah, that ties into the fleshing out of the character. But yeah, there's this line in the movie where when they're talking about Cassidy, they say, yeah, he's a natural born killer. And I'm like, I see what you did there. I like that. That's a, basically, like I said, that's a reference to Woody Harrelson's Natural Born Killers movie. But yeah, overall, with all my negatives, I give this movie. I give this movie 7 big ups. It's not bad. It's a movie that I can buy. I can actually buy on DVD and keep in my movie collection. It's a rating is one less rating because if I were to do a review on Venom, the score would be an 8 for Venom, and that's why I say I give it a 7 for Venom. Let There Be Carnage, because it wasn't a 8 like Venom was, but it wasn't a 6 or a 5 or worse. It was a good solid 7. You will enjoy if you go into if you watch this and knowing that it's a buddy comedy, you will enjoy this movie. But if you don't see this and you go into it thinking that it's going to be a gruesome, what you would expect from Carnage type movie, then you're going to be very disappointed. You're going to be disappointed with the tone of the movie as well. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. If you enjoyed this review, hit that button right there in the upper right corner for all my reviews. And if you enjoyed this review so much and you want to support the channel, then hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and become part of the family like so many people are doing. You want to be like those people. Do like them. Do like they're doing. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss videos, because I got a gameplay video coming up for you too. But yeah, you don't want to miss none of that. Also, hit that notification button. And as always, hit any one of these videos for more of my amazing content. See you in the Ghost of Tsushima gameplay video. Yeah. Peace. Have a great rest of your night.